Hello and welcome to our Community Forum, a production of Cardinal Television at St. John Fisher College. I'm Dr. Lauren Vicker of the Communication Journalism Department, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's program. Rochester residents are used to seeing students from the Wegmans School of Nursing gain their clinical experience at area hospitals, but a select group of senior students had the opportunity to complete their senior year by working as nurses for 3 weeks in Kenya. A little later in our program, we're going to be meeting two of those students who traveled to Kenya as part of this program. But now, joining us in the studios of Cardinal Television is Dr. Nancy Wilk, a professor in the Wegmans School of Nursing here at St. John Fisher College. Dr. Wilk's specialty is women's health, and she serves as one of the facilitators of the foreign nursing student experiences. She has led 3 groups of Fisher students to Kenya, most recently in November of this past year, and we're pleased to have her here today. Welcome, Nancy.
Oh, thank you.
So nice to see you here and to
Thank
hear
you.
about your experience. I understand you're wearing Kenyan earrings.
Yes, I am.
So that's
Yeah.
very nice, dressed for the part. So there are a lot of healthcare experiences that students can have right here in Rochester or even within the United States. So why take them to Kenya?
Well, I personally believe that students can gain a lot of cultural understanding and just amazing experiences that will be life-changing by going to other parts of the world. And I think what it does for students, it helps make the world a smaller place. I mean, yes, we can certainly do things here and there are plenty of opportunities. But on the other hand, what a way to get a wonderful experience, do some traveling, experience another culture firsthand, and see how probably a majority of the world's population lives in a third world country.
So of all the countries that you could pick, could you talk a little bit about how this program began? Why Kenya?
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. Several years ago, I must have been in 2008, I happened to have 2 students in one of my classes in OB. One student was actually from Kenya, and the other student, her whole family were missionaries in Kenya. So we were just chatting, and I had done some mission trips with other colleges that I had worked for. And I said, boy, would I love to do, a mission trip. And so those 2 students, both having some ties to Kenya, said, well, why don't we go to Kenya?
Oh.
So we spent a lot of time planning. And in the spring of 2009, we set off on our first trip to Kenya, and with a variety of different people. It wasn't just nursing students, we had pharmacy students, and actually a biology student, some faculty. So it was kind of an interesting, mix of people, but we set off to see what we could establish for future students to experience in Kenya.
So this experience was called a preceptorship, and the students have different options for completing that. Could you maybe explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, the preceptorship is a fairly new curriculum component that we started. I believe this will be our 3rd group of students that are actually doing this 3-week preceptorship. And what it does is it allows the students that are second semester seniors who will be graduating to go out into the community here in Rochester or across the United States if they have a particular hospital that they know about or where they live, that they could actually do this work, or they can go to a foreign country. So what it does is it allows the students to work one-on-one with the nurses who are they're assigned to, and they do 120 hours with this nurse, and then learn firsthand, what it's like to be a working nurse. And then when they go to Kenya, or some students are going to be going to Peru here soon, what we do there is we do more community health nursing, because again, the hospitals in Kenya and Peru really aren't quite the same as they are here in the United States. So we do a lot more community work there.
And obviously, an international trip is pretty expensive. It's a lot easier to drive down the road to Strong to do your clinical experience. So could you talk a little bit about how they fund the trips?
Well, most of the students have been doing their own funding. Okay. I always tell students to try to do some fundraising. Some students have used Facebook to raise some funds. Some people have gone to their churches and asked for money. Some of the students just pay for it pretty much out of pocket. We also have the option, if they have any money left in their financial aid package, that they could actually use that to fund their trip. So from a variety of sources, but I would say that the majority of students are paying for this on their own.
Okay. And can you give us an idea of what, kind of an expense it is?
It's about $3,000. And the interesting thing is the most expensive part of it is the air travel.
Right.
It's about half. And then the rest of it encompasses 3 weeks of all their lodging, all their food, all their transportation, a safari at the end for 2 days.
Oh.
So for $1,500 more, the other part of that is really everything else that you can anticipate as far as expenses.
Right, okay. So what kind of preparation do you do for American students, some of whom might not have ever traveled abroad? How do you get them ready for this kind of experience?
Well, what we've done is we have a 5-week series, basically, of seminars that they have to attend. And it's over about every other week or so during the semester. And it's about a 3-hour time frame. And what we do is we talk about, what's the culture of Kenya or Peru, depending on where they're going, but in Kenya. What is the healthcare system like? What is the history of the healthcare system? What's nursing education like in Kenya? And then we talk about some of the more common conditions and diseases that we will see and how they're treated. We talk about self-care, safety, really all aspects of the culture over there.
And are there some specific safety things they need to worry about, vaccinations they need to get,
Yes.
that sort of thing?
And that's another part of the expenses is there are some very specific vaccinations. One is being yellow fever, which is very expensive. And again, yellow fever is not real common. You can get it by getting bit by a mosquito. So the mosquitoes that have it are not very many, but if you get it, there's a very high risk of dying. So it's one of those immunizations that you really have to get. You need to be updated on your polio, of course, all your normal immunizations that you would get for here, but also typhoid and hepatitis A.
Okay. And is there malaria also, or not?
Yes, there is malaria, and you have to take a prophylaxis type of medication, and there's several different forms, and so students need to be taking that, prior to leaving, and then after about a week after coming home.
Okay.
And the other safety issue really is just not going out at night. I mean, you're in a foreign country, where again, going out after dark isn't really safe, and so we don't really allow students to do that. But other than that, I really, I've never felt unsafe in Kenya.
So how structured was the trip itself? Did you have a specific itinerary where you had to be each day?
Yes, we did, but we always tell the students you have to be flexible. Things change very quickly, or can. And so we had planned a visit to an orphanage. We spent some time in one city called Nakuru, where we met Father Stephen, who actually was a graduate from St. John Fisher. He's one of the priests, the Kenyan priests. And we spent really just like a day and a half with him. And then we traveled up to a town called Maseno. And there we worked in the hospital for about 9 days. And then also during that time, students were assigned to community health visits with community health workers. And they drove kind of to the middle of the bush and would walk and go to different homes of patients that had HIV with a community health worker. And so they had different rotations in those 9 days. And we also did a clinic at the Mbako Romo School, which is a school that was rebuilt by 2 gentlemen from Building Futures here in Rochester, New York.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
So there's really a Rochester connection there.
There is a Rochester connection. And the other interesting thing about that is once we kind of partnered with Building Futures several years ago, they have finished building a healthcare clinic, which is about to open any time now. So it's very exciting. So we actually did a clinic there for all the children in the school one Sunday at the clinic that wasn't quite open yet.
But the building is almost ready,
Yep.
so that's
Ready to go.
that is very exciting.
Yeah.
So can you describe what the environment was like? It sounds like you were in some very rural areas, but then others that were more built up?
Well, we're pretty much spent most of our time in the rural areas. Maseno is a very small town. It is a college town. And so there's, housing. We stayed on the campus of the hospital and in a, very Spartan home, but it was adequate. And then after spending the 9 days there, I failed to mention the Maasai tribe. We actually did 2 days of clinic with the Maasai people in 2 of their villages. And I'm talking about being in the bush.
Really?
And our when we arrived out of our vans, one of the tribal leaders said, "Oh, there's your clinic over there." And it was just one tree in the middle of a savanna.
Oh, my.
And so we pulled they got us this rickety table, and we basically stood and saw the people there.
Wow.
And so it was very interesting. So really did not spend much time in the cities at all,
So how did you get your food? Were you eating, were people providing your
Yes,
meals?
at the hospital where we're staying, in the grounds of the hospital, we had, the place we stayed is actually a house for volunteers that come to work there. And there's a woman there that works and cleans and provides our meals for us every day. So that was wonderful. And then other times we eat out at safe restaurants. And so we really were well taken care of.
And the environment where you actually slept, I assume there was no Wi-Fi, or was there Wi-Fi?
Actually, not for the person. Like, I actually ended up buying a particular, card that I could put into my iPad to get some Wi-Fi, because I did need to have some sort of communication with people back here at St. John Fisher, and so that the students could, email their parents, and they were looking for jobs while they were there, like job offers that were supposed to be coming in. And then also we did a blog. So it was nice to have that. But typically you're not going to get Wi-Fi unless you get a specific, type of device to help with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was pretty different from what they're
so.
used to. So what you mentioned some of the things that you did, but what were the major tasks that the students were doing while they were?
Well, they worked in the hospital, and again, it's very, very different. So it's very hard to make a really good comparison. But they worked alongside. We had another adjunct professor that we hired, a nurse who had lived in Kenya for a while, and so they would work with her within the hospital. But then they also two would go to like the maternal child clinic, two would go to the HIV clinic, two would go to the community health with a community health worker, as I mentioned earlier, and then they would rotate. So, and then we spent a lot of time in the OB area. We saw lots of deliveries. We had several students got to participate in actually delivering the babies.
Nice.
And so we spent a lot of time there because they were very, very busy. So, and then I would accompany them in that location. Yeah.
So it sounds like they were able to do a lot of really hands-on sorts of things. Was it always under the supervision of a Kenyan local nurse, or sometimes on their own?
Never really on their own. Things are very, very different there, so it's really hard to say, well, go ahead and do this, because they don't have the supplies we have, the same medications that we have. So really, we worked really side by side with the nurses.
And what kinds of assistance can you give to people with HIV? What kinds of things were they doing there that, just in comparison to what we might see here?
Really, what they do, that they have a very, very well-developed community health worker program. And each one of these community health workers is HIV positive themselves. And so they voluntarily go into their communities where they live and visit the patients with HIV. And make sure they're taking their medications, because the medications are provided by the government.
Yes.
And so they make sure they take them. They talk about the importance of eating well and sleeping enough and all of that, so that they can stay as healthy as they can. And they're very proud of their program. Yeah. So
excellent. So how accepting do you think the local population was of having these students from America come in?
Well, they look forward to us coming now. This was our fifth trip to Kenya with students. And they are very accepting. Just love us, as we were leaving, as I'll never forget, as we were driving out of the hospital grounds in our vans. I mean, everybody that we had met in the 9 days that we were there, even the local women that were working some of the little, shacks, I guess, like little stores or whatever that they have, were all waving and, made us just really want to cry, because everybody was very, very attached to us. So they really, really enjoy us coming, and they look forward to it.
So now that you've had that relationship established, it's almost expected
Yep.
that they're coming.
They look forward to us coming now.
They look forward to you. Yeah, that's great. So how do you think, now that you've had a chance to witness it, quite a few students go through this, how do you think this experience affects them?
Well, I think from what I can tell in general, is most students will say that they really have been forever changed. They look at their lives here and see how good that we all have it. And, they're just, I think more humble, maybe not using some of their devices as much because they didn't have them for 3 weeks, and realize that, wow, some of the things that we take for granted really just aren't that important, you know.
And how about for you as a faculty member, having the chance to experience this as well, but from a different perspective?
Well, you know, for me, I just am amazed every time I, you know, take students, because they're just amazing. You know, what they do, how they treat the patients. I mean, I'm just so proud of them. And so that gives me a whole different perspective on the students as well.
Yeah.
You know, how well they do, and what incredible people they are. So for me, it makes me feel really good.
Now, is there anything that you've taken back to the classroom as a result of these
All the time.
experiences?
Yeah. Yeah, especially in OB, because I bring back some pictures. I'll talk about, well, you know, here, this is what we do in the United States. In Kenya, this is what they do. And things are very different there. I mean, women don't have medications when they're delivering. They don't have a nurse by their side. And so it's a really good way of contrasting, you know, how probably most of the world's women deliver compared to here at in the United States.
Yeah, right. So you can make them appreciate the things that they have here. So, well, we're just about out of time, but I'm wondering if there's anything that maybe I didn't ask you about, or anything that you'd like to add about the experience for these students.
I think the one thing that I'd like to say is that if anybody, you know, can get this experience, I hope that they'll, you know, take the opportunity to do it. I only wish that at some point in time any student could go, not just the students that, you know, happen to be at the time to have the money to go, because I just think it's an incredible experience that people will never forget.
It does. It sounds that way.
Yeah,
so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Nancy Wilk for being here today. And we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to meet two of the students who accompanied Dr. Wilk on her most recent trip to Kenya. Welcome back to our community forum from St. John Fisher College. Joining us now are two students from the Wegmans School of Nursing who did their senior capstone experience in Kenya, Mira Kedley and Anne-Marie Grace. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. Now, I noticed, Mira, that you are wearing some of the jewelry that you bought when you were in Kenya.
Wearing a bracelet
Okay.
and then some earrings.
Earrings? Oh, very nice. And did you understand you guys did a lot of shopping while you were in Kenya?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that, but first I'd like to know all the places that you had to choose to do that final clinical experience. What made you decide that you wanted to go to Kenya? Mira, why don't you start?
I want to do something different. I felt like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, a lot of my classmates stayed here in Rochester. There was also an option to go to Ireland. And then there's also an option to go to Peru or Kenya. And I felt like I would never be able to go to Kenya again. Why not go now?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Anne-Marie, how about you?
Well, I've always really been interested in like underprivileged populations, and I thought this was such an extreme example. Why not go and really see it?
Now, had either of you ever been to Africa before? No? So it was a pretty unique experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So could you talk a little bit about the preparation, some of the things that you had to go through to get ready? Anne-Marie, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we had to do all the seminars that Dr. Wilk talked about. We were given a couple packing lists, and we were really unsure on like what do we need in Kenya.
Right.
So lots of texts and Facebook messages going around all 7 of us, like what do we bring, what do we bring? But shots, all that, pills, everything, getting all the medication we need to go.
And this was in addition to going to classes, right? And doing all the work that you needed to do just to finish that last semester. Yeah, okay. So how about the cultural preparation? Did you do anything for that?
In the seminars, they taught us a lot about the culture. Also, we had a girl that, a former student that went to Kenya last semester, and she came in and showed us her slideshow, and that really gave us a better understanding of what we would see, like the climate, the people, the culture. So that was really helpful.
Okay. Now, in terms of the nursing skills that you were going to be doing there, that was going to be significantly different from the other experiences that you had here in Rochester, correct?
Yeah.
So what kinds of things were those?
We saw a woman that was in a peaky accident. So that's like a motorcycle accident. And she had lost a good portion of the tissue, the muscle of her upper leg. And we got to be part of the dressing change, which was really cool to be part of. One, she wasn't medicated for it.
Oh dear.
Yep, typically in the US, they're medicated, even taken to the OR for that. She had it done at the bedside. One of our classmates held her hand through the entire procedure. And they do honey dressings. So they take like gauze and they pour honey all over it because the sugar content of honey is so high that bacteria won't grow. So we got to see them, do something that was completely different that we've never seen before.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you're so used to probably going and getting the supplies or medications that you need routinely, and things are different there. What kind of experiences did you have with the babies? I heard a lot about the babies.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in maternity. Well, we were there holding the women's hands, rubbing their backs while they were in labor, because the nurses there, it's not their culture to do that. So I think they really appreciated like someone being there with them, because their husbands aren't allowed in the delivery room. A couple of us really got to like do stuff like with the birth. Like Kim got to actually like hold the baby as it came out and cut the cord and everything like that. So that was really awesome.
So did you feel like you made an impact that some of those nurses would think of these things then afterwards when you?
We hope, yeah. We hope that they would like see it and be like, oh, maybe I'll hold a hand of a woman who looks like she really needs it or something.
Right. To give her some support,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So could you talk a little bit about a special project that you worked on called the PAD Project? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Anne-Marie and actually, we did together. We did it at the clinic that we did at the school. And we had a group of young girls, and we presented them with teaching them about the reproductive system. And then from there, we also just talked about like the menses, how normal it is, like symptoms. And we learned a lot from the girls about what they do and how they obtain, the materials that they use when they have their menses. And it was really heartbreaking. A lot of the girls will sleep with men to get money so they can buy, sanitary items. Or they'll sleep with the boys in their school, or they just won't go to school because they don't have any sanitary items. And that's one thing, a lot of women take for granted. We just, run to CVS, run to Wegmans, and it's right there. And it was heartbreaking to hear these little girls' stories. And especially when they're sleeping with these men, they have a possibility of contracting HIV or other STDs. And we presented them with underwear and pads and their smiles on their faces. Like you thought, it was like you're giving them $1 million. They were smiling ear from ear, and it was so cool to be part of that. That was one of my favorite things that we got to do. And at the end, we had all the girls get in a circle. We all held hands, and we did a strong woman talk. And because they said what they wanted to be in the beginning, like engineers, doctors, and I was like, you know what, you gotta, stay in school, you gotta study, you can do this, we're all strong women, we're all in it together, and that was so cool to be part of.
Wow, that was very impressive.
Yeah.
Where did the idea for this come from?
Did it come from Jess?
No, it came from someone. But yeah, I mean,
But,
sure.
a lot of people in the community,
Yeah.
church groups from, all over Rochester, and were making the pads. Students from nursing made pads, faculty made pads. People donated money that we used to buy the materials for the pads, because the main issue was making sure it's like waterproof and something easy to wash, and the girls could wash by hand and then air dry. And in between, like, because we gave them 2 pads.
And so you brought all of these supplies with you as part of the material you were traveling
Yeah, that
with?
had a whole suitcase worth.
Wow, oh,
Yeah.
that's very impressive. Yeah. And I can understand where that would be very gratifying, something that, as you said, we take for granted and would mean so much to their lives. So that's very nice. So how are the living arrangements for you? Probably a little bit difficult to get used to compared to what
Yeah, we had bunk beds most of the time, and there was 4 of us per room, so close quarters.
got to know each other well?
Yes.
Yeah, and then like the mosquito nets, I kind of joked
Oh, yeah.
around that was like the honeymoon suite. Like, instead of thinking of it as a mosquito net, thinking of it as like a beautiful canopy. And just not, looking at the smell or looking at the stains on it, and just be like, oh, this is just so beautiful here. This is not a mosquito net.
Yeah, oh, well,
So.
it was all in your mind then.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And the food, were you able to tolerate the food? That was
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
so.
It was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Great. So looking back, how do you think this has impacted you and your decision to become a nurse?
I think it's definitely strengthened my decision to become a nurse. Just being able to go and help these people who have absolutely nothing was such an amazing experience and so powerful and moving. It's just definitely furthered my drive to become a nurse to help people.
I feel the same way. I dream about Kenya almost every night, and we've been back since December, and I still dream about the people. I find myself constantly looking at my photos that I took of like the children we met there and the people we met there, and I think I want to go back. I never thought I would have this desire to do something like this, but I feel like I really want to go back, next year and go to different countries and experience their culture and help out.
Oh, excellent. And you feel the same way?
Absolutely.
Oh,
You
that's
become
amazing.
such good friends with these people. It's like you have to go back. You have to go see them again.
Oh, that is so nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, Anne-Marie Grace and Mira Kedley. And I should mention that both of these young women have taken positions with Strong Memorial Hospital, and they will be starting within the next couple of months. So we congratulate them on that success. Thank you.